Hey, good morning everyone. Welcome along to our very first episode of Fitness Business Podcast live here on Facebook. If you're tuning in, thank you so much for joining me. Really excited to get our very first Facebook broadcast happening. Now, first things first, before I even start talking to you guys today, how good are the Aussies? 1 and 2 in the CrossFit Games. How phenomenal is that? So Tia Claire Toomey and Cara Webb absolutely smashed it. JT, I'm sideways. Oh no, hang on. Let me change this. Let me see if we can sort this out and get me the right way up. Does that look better now? How's that? Matt, I know I'm sideways. I was trying to just test you guys out. Am I the right way up now, guys? Can I have a thumbs up if I'm the right way up? Yes, awesome. Okay, so you've got to have a few teething issues on your first Facebook Live, right? Fair enough. So like I was saying, a huge congratulations to the Aussies for coming first and second in the CrossFit Games. What a phenomenal way to start our week here in Australia. Maddie, thanks so much for jumping on. JT, good to see you this morning. Good job on your workout this morning. So guys, welcome along to our very first episode. So couple of bits and pieces. I'm going to be seeing you guys every 2 weeks on a Monday, and we're going to just have a bit of a catch up. We'll talk a little bit about fitness business, talk a little bit about the show, what's going on, what's coming up, and some of the highlights, those type of things. So first things first, I've got a question for you guys. How much time are you spending looking at your screen on social media accounts? Be totally honest with me. Whether you're watching live or whether you're watching this as a recording, write it down in the comments below. How much time do you reckon on average per week you're spending staring at this screen? The reason I ask you this is because about 2 weeks ago, I was checking out the TED Talks. I was actually listening to the podcast, and I came across this phenomenal guy by the name of Professor Adam Alter. I want to make sure I get his name right. And JT, too much, yeah, you and me both. And Professor Adam Alter did this brilliant TED Talk, which was all about how much time we're spending behind our screens and the fact that our screens are actually making us less happy. I wanted to share it with you because there was a few things in there that he talked about that I thought was really interesting. He gave a comparison of 2007 right up into 2017. And basically what he was saying is that time that traditionally we would have spent with our family, or we would have spent doing hobbies or doing things around the house, is slowly but surely being completely smothered by the amount of time that we're actually spending on our social media accounts. Having listened to the talk, it was a catalyst for me, because any of you guys that follow me on Instagram, you probably know that I'm a little bit addicted to Instagram, and to be honest, addicted to checking all of my social media accounts. And I guess as much as I was aware of how much time that was eating up, having watched this TED Talk really made me go, probably need to check that out and see if I can cut back a little bit on that. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about this particular TED Talk was that he was saying that so often with a lot of the research that he did, when people were asked how they actually feel when they're consuming content behind their screens, on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever it might be, that quite often they weren't in a good state of mind. They weren't happy to do it. With the exception, which is really interesting, with the exception of things like mindfulness and health-based apps. So when people had hey Mel, good morning, when people they were watching like a meditation app or using a meditation app or something that was health-based, then they were in a good place. But anything else, they weren't in a happy place. So it kind of makes you go, well, how come as consumers we are spending this much time? And quite often it is that addictive sort of quality that our social media streams give to us. So I wanted to share with you just a couple of quick habits that I have now implemented as a result of hearing that talk. And the first one is a complete switch off. So I've got 1 day a week that during the week that I do not work on the podcasts. So what I now do is completely log out of my social media accounts on that day. Not just kind of switch it off, not just kind of go, I'm not going to look at it. Yeah, thumbs up, thank you. But actually completely sign out, get out of there. Because you know what? I know that I personally do not have the willpower to not check it. So sign out at the beginning of the day and at the same time switch off my notifications. And now, because I owe it to my family, and by the way, speaking of family, do you want to check him out? That's my podcast assistants down there. I owe it to those guys and my husband to actually switch off on the weekends. So now what I also do is on a Saturday morning, completely log out of my social media, Facebook in particular, and don't get back on there until a Monday morning. And I've found that all of a sudden I feel as though I've got so much more time up my sleeve. I've got so much more time to focus on going back and doing things that I love doing that are not related to social media or work and that type of thing. So if you find as though you might be in a similar situation, there's actually a couple of apps that you can check out that help give you a bit of an idea of how much time you are actually spending on social media. So some of those apps are, there's Antisocial, kind of good name for it. There's the Rescue Time app, there's Moment, and there's Break Free. So if you've heard of any others or if you've used any others, then why not pop them in the comments below and share them around. And like I said, be totally honest. Tell me how much time you're actually spending online. Is it something that you need to look at too? Because maybe you can actually find some time back in your day if you get that under control. So cool. So if you want to check out that TED talk that I mentioned that's all about why our screens are making us less happy, then write TED, T-E-D, in the comments below, and I'll make sure that I send you through that link. Okay, next up guys, let's talk about the show. What's happening in August? Now I should mention that each time that we catch up, it's pretty quick. We're going to catch up for about 10 minutes or so. We'll talk a little bit about fitness business and we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up. So I want to talk to you about August because last week we had our Mark Schaefer, and a brilliant author, join us on the show to talk about how to become known in the fitness industry. This is a really interesting one because so often I'm coming across personal trainers who are starting to establish things like their Instagram following, their Facebook account, or they've set themselves up a website, but quite often they get to a sticking point where they just can't move to that next level. And one of the things that Mark talks about in the interview and in his book is how important it is to create a point of difference and how you can actually find a really specific niche so that you can stand out from the rest of the crowd. If you missed that show, what I want you to do is type 114 in the comments below and I'll send you through a link to that show. And I highly recommend reading that book if that's something that's important to you, to growing your social media profile, to growing your profile in the fitness industry. Maybe you are looking at going into online personal training, or maybe you've got your own facility, then type that in, check that out, have a read of the book. And not only the book, but also it comes with an accompanying workbook. So if you're kind of at that stage but you're unsure of what those next steps are to take, then he gives you some really practical advice on what you can do in order to become known. Now, talking about becoming known, if going live on Facebook is one of the things that you want to give it a go, and but you're not sure where to start, then I'll give you a little pointer. I actually just finished reading, JT from Active Management has just written an ebook, a tip sheet, all about how to do your very first Facebook Live. So JT, thank you for your help on getting me sorted out for today's show. It was so useful being able to review all of the things that you needed to do. I screwed up the landscape portrait thing though. I don't know how I did that wrong. I'm gonna have to practice that for next time, but JT's got a really good tip sheet on what to do. So if you want a copy of that, and if you want to start your very own Facebook Live, then I highly recommend checking it out. All you need to do is write tip, T-I-P, in the comments below, and I'll make sure that you get a link for that tip sheet from JT. Okay, next up. If you guys are following us already on social media, I know that you're going to know about this one, but if not, then listen up. We have just launched the FBP Intensive Series. Now, the series has really come about due to your feedback and your demand for in-depth, detailed information that's going to help your fitness business. So the FBP Intensive Series is 4 weeks, 4 episodes, 15 minutes per show. and it's on one specific topic with one expert guest. Now, the first one came out last week and it features Paul Brown, Mr. Retention, and he's talking all about member retention. So how do you retain your members within your business? Paul Brown is phenomenal. He's an absolute expert in this area. He has done such a great job for us in helping us out with this series. So every week for the next 4 weeks, you're going to get that series directly to your podcast player, or you can head on to the website, which is at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, and it is practical advice on member retention. Now, you might want to listen to those one at a time, or you might want to join them all together, wait till the end and listen to them all. But here's a tip for you. Every single one of those audio episodes, which I said are only about 15 minutes each, come with a downloadable transcription. And on that downloadable transcription are actions. So make sure that you actually do that. You can take it back to your facilities, work with your teams on working through the actions and the advice from Paul Brown. So definitely go and check that out. Now, that's intensive series number 1. In October, I am so excited because I have just recorded an hour of interviews with the one and only Casey Conrad. So Casey Conrad is guest number 2, and she's going to be talking about sales. And believe you me, the stuff that she has shared is so good, and the actions that she's given you to take away and work with your team are really good as well. So guys, if you want to check out the first of the intensive series, then make sure that you download it, or in the comments below just type 115. It's show 115, and I'll send you through a link to that show. And I want to do a shout out right now. He's not on the line at the moment, but I hope he's watching it later, to Luke Carlson, because Luke actually just sent me a note this morning saying how good he thought the first intensive was. So thank you so much for your support, Luke. That means the world to us. Okay, we're getting there, guys. Hey, good morning. It's so good to see everyone online. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you are tuning in later on, by the way, thank you so much for tuning in to our very first Fitness Business Podcast live. And as a quick reminder, we're going to be coming to you every second Monday at 8:30 a.m. Sydney time, 2:30 p.m. LA time. So one more thing coming up this month. I have got the CEO of One Fit Stop, Jaron Azen. I'm going to be talking to him in about an hour's time, and he's going to be giving us an update on the technology that's coming up in the industry. He's just attended the Idea World Summit, which was on in Vegas about 2 weeks ago now. So he's coming on to give us a technology update. I've got award-winning entrepreneur Daniel Neary coming on to give us his very best book recommendations. And something about Daniel that you may not know is that he basically was telling me that his business turned around completely when he started implementing reading as one of his regular rituals within his business. So I'm really excited to get Daniel on the show and hear his book recommendations, which I'm going to be sharing with you guys this week. I've also got Dr. Bill Sakala. Bill, I hope I pronounced your surname correctly. Now, this one I'm really excited about because he's coming on to do a health check for our website. Okay, a health check for our website. So if your website may have a little bit of work to be done, or if you're not sure if it's actually performing at its absolute best, Bill is an expert when it comes to website optimization, SEO, and as I said, he's going to do a health check for us, which is really cool. Last but not least, this one is pretty massive for us. I'm really stoked about this. We've actually got Bedros Keuilian coming on the show in a couple of weeks' time. And I want to say thank you so much because I know that quite a few of you have already sent through your questions for me to ask Bedros. And if anyone has any extras, there's still time. So send them on through, or perhaps just write Bedros down there and I'll direct message you to get your question. If you want to just type the question, go for it. I'm going to be speaking to Bedros in 2 days' time, and his interview will be coming up later on in the month. How does that sound? Give me a thumbs up if you like the sound of all of that. We've got a huge month coming this on the way. Okay, we're nearly done, guys. So listen, I want to say thank you once again for joining me, our very, very first episode of Fitness Business Podcast Live. Once again, a couple of quick reminders. If you want a copy of that TED Talk, Why Our Screens Are Making Us Less Happy, then write TED, T-E-D, in the comments. If you want a copy of Mark Schaefer's interview, type 114 in the comments. If you want the very first intensive, it's 115. And if you want JT's awesome tip sheet on how to do your very first Facebook Live broadcast, then write TIP, T-I-P, in the comments below. Okay, I think that's all. I'm checking my notes to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Yes, one last thing. Don't forget, if you try out any of those apps that we talked about earlier, you know, those tracking apps to see what we're doing on our social media, then let me know how you go. Let me know, be totally honest with how much time you're actually spending. And if you've got any tips as well on how you curb your social media addiction, then let me know. We can share them around the group and see if we can all get it a little bit more under control so that we're spending, you know, a little bit better in our work-life balance, spending a bit more time doing those fun habits that we all enjoy doing, spending more time with our families, and get that social media habit a little bit more under control. That's all for our very first broadcast, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Hey, Kate Golden, welcome. Good morning to you, or it's probably good afternoon for you. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you go back and listen to the show that we've just talked about, because we talked about social media habits. We talked a little bit about how to get known in the fitness industry, and our very first intensive, the member retention. That is it. I'm Chantal. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. See you then. Bye.